Yesterday became a very interesting day for a lot of authors. Several have been predicting for quite a while now that CreateSpace is going to be folding into Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP. And yes, the news is now official. Everyone has received a general notice if they have their books on CreateSpace that this will be happening, and that they have tools in place that will be rolling out to help with the transition. A few of my friends have already gone through it. Now, I've received the general notice, but I don't have the message that a lot of people are talking about that say things like, click this and we will transfer your books. It's supposed to appear on the member dashboard, and all I've received is a general notice. So I'm guessing that maybe they're rolling this out gradually to only a couple people at a time, or not a couple people obviously, but a select group, and then they'll move on to the next one so that the resources are being used more efficiently. Now, I know that others have put together guides for how to transfer. I'm going to include a link in the description to a couple that I've found that I hope you will find useful if that's what you want to do. For my part, I'm actually going to wait just a few days more. Keep an eye out, see if that message comes, because supposedly the automatic transition that you can start once you receive the message moves much more swiftly and also moves far more efficiently than doing it the other way. So we'll see what happens there. What I do know for certain is that the stories that I am going to be publishing through CreateSpace, I'm now going to try out directly with KDP Print. And as far as the quality goes, I'm going to be getting some samples here soon. I really don't know that it's going to be that big of a difference. They already said that it will be through the same printer, but several authors have noted that their prices have to go up, which in my case, with this long of a story, it's not the greatest thing. So I'm really hoping, because so far all of them have been individuals with shorter books, such as 30 pages or less, I'm hoping and wondering if perhaps that is to compensate for the shortness of the book, which that's not good news for them anyway, but it might be an important distinction. So far as writing goes, it has been an interesting process, definitely. I have continued to work on the scenes that are causing me some challenges, and you know, even though I sometimes need to just take a break and walk away from it, one of the things that I did to accomplish that yesterday was I decided to make some gifs, and I had so much fun. And one of the reasons that I wanted to start doing that anyway was because I love certain characters and I never find gifs with them. For instance, Tim Curry's Cardinal is one of my favorite villains, had a huge impact on so many characters that I've created, and I so rarely have found some of the incredibly important gifts that, in my opinion, partially made that character. So yesterday I took that time and I worked on making some for almost an hour and a half, and it was a very good use of time. It wasn't just Cardinal gifts, I did some others, and I just think they're a lot of fun to do. It's a nice creative expression that doesn't require a lot of thinking. It requires more just remembering, oh yes, I really liked that. Although I am working on my own cataloging system so that I can find them, because I could quickly see myself becoming awash with gifts. And I tell you, Facebook's search function, it's just been challenging. And I also found a way to do this without using Giphy and other sites. It's not that they're bad, but my issue has been that they're incredibly slow, internet drags, and I can rarely find exactly what I'm looking for. Though, in fairness to those sites, I tend to have highly specific desires. I'm going to see if I can actually add a few of these in here using the overlay feature that I'm now figuring out how to use. But these are hopefully some of the ones that I was in process of making. Now, as far as the other projects, acceptance is continuing to come along. I actually nailed down the places where the story isn't quite working. The transitional scenes are my weakest point, and those often are my struggle points, because what typically happens is that I take a notebook and I will write out. At the start of every day, I try to do a free writing exercise that goes on for about 4 pages if I can, and I'm a little bit of a stickler. I don't like leaving extra space. I like to fill it up as much as I can with stories. Sometimes that's not always going to happen, but I can go back and use that space later. Anyway, I draft them out here, so often I get the core scenes, these really strong emotional scenes that really move the story forward. And I love those. I love the emotion in them. Even when I hate other parts, it's this strange connection. But the transitional scenes, because I write them later, sometimes the sound is just off. Now, I could try just writing the story in order from beginning to end, but the problem is that I'm not quite a linear storyteller. Sometimes I am, but I've found that I do my absolute best when I'm allowed to jump around, and that's part of the reason I try to keep a meticulous story Bible and notes about where I'm going, because things do fall through the cracks. Things change all the time. And, you know, there's new details and things I need to remember. And frankly, I'm a little bit behind on the story Bibles, and I need to go get caught up before it gets too much. And suddenly I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness, what on earth was I thinking? I actually had that happen with one series, this one book. I didn't finish it, and I was sitting there, and I was thinking, I'm just going to set this aside for a little bit. I need a break, because the climax was, it was going to be an incredibly draining scene to write. Well, that little break wound up taking about 8 months. And when I came back, I picked up the book and I started reading from the beginning, and I had only kept my notes up for the first few chapters that set up a lot of the core elements. And then there was this one character who shows up, and he's all dark and foreboding, and he is promising all of this great reveal and terrible things are coming, all of that. Fascinating character. I didn't include anything about him in his character description except for his race, his basic abilities, his heritage, and one of the things he wanted. I left a space for the other thing that he wanted. I included some of his motivation, but not this darker part. And so I'm reading along and I can't remember, what on earth is he on about? What is happening? What's going to conclude from this? And it comes up to this scene where he is talking with two of the primary decision makers in this sequence. And he is now full force with the dark foreboding, oh, I knew all along your secret. And I'm thinking, yes, I'm finally going to figure out what the secret is. And the story ended. I didn't write it. I couldn't find it anywhere. And I poured through my notes. I was going all over the place, and I could not find this. So I suppose do better than I did in this regard and keep good notes for yourself if you're going to take a break and if you're working on multiple projects. Eventually, I did remember that happened in the middle of writing a brief for someone. I don't know why a brief on family law matters triggered that memory, but it did. And I got my story back, and I think it's going to be fine. So keep that story Bible up to date. As far as acceptance goes, it does need some more work. Those transitional scenes, I'm probably going to have to write and rewrite at least 2 or 3 more times. And that's often how it goes because, you know, I've mentioned this before, it's sort of like playing it out, and then I have to hear. But each time I rewrite it, I hear more and more, and less has to be fixed. So I am looking forward to seeing that happen. I also really need to make sure that I solidify the introduction, because the emotions that Hakkar is going through, they are intense, they're convoluted, and at a few points they are almost contradictory, because one of the more interesting facets that I've found in dealing with chronic depression and suicidal depression is the fact that what is felt can really be in conflict with itself, and that increases the distress and the pain. And it's got to be written in a way so that the readers understand I'm not being inconsistent. This is a part of it. So those are some places that I really need to tweak. I actually think in this case the ending is fairly strong. We'll see how it goes. Obviously I've changed my mind before, and it really is fascinating how authors go through this up and down cycle of it's great, it's terrible, it's great, it's terrible. So have you ever written a story and found that you can't remember where you were taking it, or maybe you were working on another project of some sort? Feel free to share your story, and I hope you have a beautiful day. I will talk to you all later. Bye.